nice things about living in Virginia is that you are not required to have a court hearing when you're filing for what we call an uncontested divorce, or a divorce based on a legal separation. In Virginia, you can do the testimony that is required to get a divorce by affidavit, which are sworn statements for you and a witness. Those are then submitted to the court along with the final paperwork for the judge to enter to have the divorce finalized. And it doesn't require anybody to appear before the judge for a hearing on it. It's all done electronically. However, it takes longer when you're doing it electronically because the judges have up to 60 days after the paperwork is submitted to review it and enter the final decree or ask to have changes made to it if they want changes made. People often have a misunderstanding as to what it means to be legally separated in the state of Virginia. There is no paperwork required to be legally separated in the state of Virginia. All that is required is that the couple be living completely separate and apart, and at least one of them has the intention to end the marriage. However, many couples like to have what's called a separation agreement prepared, which will settle any issues that may need to be resolved in the divorce, such as who gets what, who pays for what, child custody, child visitation, child support, spousal support, retirement benefits. All of those are things that are covered in a separation agreement. While it's not a requirement for a divorce action, it normally makes the divorce process much easier because the couple's already decided on how they want to handle all of those really important issues. People frequently want to know how long will it take for my divorce action to be finalized. There's a couple of parts to that we have no control over. One is you do have to meet the necessary separation period before the divorce action can even be filed with the court. But once you've met that required separation period and the divorce is finalized, there are several steps that have to be gone through for the divorce to be finalized. One of the steps that you'll have to go through is that you will have to notify your spouse that you have filed for a divorce. The easiest and fastest way to do that is if the non-filing spouse will sign off on some paperwork saying that they're in agreement with what you've asked for in the divorce action and they don't wish to file a response to your divorce action. We call that a waiver. That allows you to go forward very quickly to get the divorce finalized. If your spouse is not willing to sign off on the waiver, there are alternate methods to notify your spouse that you have filed for a divorce, but they will add to the processing time for your divorce, anywhere from 3 weeks to over 2 months, additional time for processing the divorce. And then to have the divorce finalized, you have a choice of either submitting the final paperwork electronically or appearing before the judge to have the divorce finalized. If you submit the paperwork electronically, the judge has up to 60 days to review it and make a decision about entering the final decree of divorce. If you appear before the judge at a hearing, the judge will normally sign the final decree of divorce at the hearing, and you can walk out of the courthouse with your final decree of divorce in hand. Overall, the process can take anywhere from about 2 months to well over 6 months, just depending on how fast everyone goes through the steps that are necessary for you to be able to get your divorce. There are several requirements to be able to get a divorce, and the hearing that is held is to make sure that you meet all of the legal requirements to be able to get a divorce. So you have to show that you have lived in Virginia for long enough to be able to qualify to file a divorce in Virginia, and you'll have to have a witness who can support that you have lived in Virginia for at least 6 months prior to the time that the divorce was filed with the court. You will also have to demonstrate that you have been separated for the required period of time, and you'll have to have a witness who can support that you and your spouse have been separated for the required period of time. The court's going to want to know if your spouse is mentally competent and able to understand the proceedings for the divorce, and you will also be asked if either of you is active duty military, as there can be additional requirements if one of the parties is active duty military. But overall, the hearing is basically just designed to make sure that you and your spouse meet all of the legal requirements to be able to get a divorce in Virginia. In Virginia, if you want to file a divorce based on being legally separated, there are two time periods that can come into play. If there are minor children of the marriage, you have to be separated for 1 full year before you can file for what we call a no-fault divorce, or the divorce based on the legal separation. If there are no minor children and you have a separation agreement that both spouses have signed, you can file for a divorce after a 6-month separation period. If you don't have a written separation agreement that both spouses have signed, you have to wait until you've been separated for 1 full year before you can file for a divorce.